Are we recording? Is this thing on?
Yes, it is. Welcome to RevOps 500, where we invite the world's top marketers to answer the tough questions facing growing organizations.
Ooh, sounds important.
I'm Sajeel Qureshi.
And I'm Gil Peng. Join us as we dive deep into the world of RevOps.
We'll be learning strategies and expertise from first-hand experience. RevOps 500 is sponsored by Computan. They provide technical and development expertise to growth-focused marketing.
Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Sajeel Qureshi here with another episode of RevOps 500, where we interview some of the world's greatest B2B marketing minds out there. Today, I am extremely excited to be talking to our guest. He was awarded one of the top 50 B2B marketing influencers to follow. He's a writer. In my opinion, he's a marketing genius and he's a revenue expert. For over 20 years, he's managed digital, traditional marketing, email marketing, and business development for different organizations. Right now, you can find him as the VP of Marketing at Send. Charlie Riley, welcome to RevOps 500.
Thanks for having me. It's quite a flattering, but probably a little inflated intro, but I appreciate it.
No, not at all. No, just stating the facts here, Charlie. So, anyways, look, let's just jump right in. What, in your opinion, is one RevOps myth?
I think the biggest myth that I might find now is that a RevOps role should not, a myth should be that a RevOps role should not be one of the first hires in either sales or marketing or in a joined revenue capacity. And I say that because 10 years ago, it probably would have been looked at as a nice to have, not a need to have. And nowadays, I think the argument could be made where in a marketing function, and maybe more so looking at revenue as a whole, as maybe more on the marketing side, a RevOps role is critical. And it's arguably maybe one of the first hires you should make, because a lot of marketing efforts and sort of executions can be outsourced. You can outsource creative, you can outsource media buying, you can outsource writing, but you need clean data. You need to be able to trust that your systems work together, that, whatever CRM system you're using, whatever email marketing systems, whatever executions you're using, you need to feel confident that they work, they're connected, and you can accurately report on those. And that specialization in RevOps, it's critical now. So I think the myth might be that you don't need to hire someone early, but I think the sooner the better for a specialist and even a team.
So you're saying that most organizations will view RevOps as maybe something as a nice to have, or maybe when the team is getting a little bit more mature or bigger, then they bring in a RevOps person, maybe full time or fractional or whatever. But what you're saying is that it needs to come in early. But why? I mean, and you use data as a reasoning for that. What about like the alignment of like, like your sales and your marketing and customer success and those things? How does maybe making RevOps one of the first hires play into all that?
Yeah, it obviously depends on the size of the organization. I've typically worked with small companies. I've either been the first marketing hire, and that's usually at a small company. Just because you wear one title doesn't mean that you're not wearing multiple hats doing that. So I've stretched over into sales leadership. I've stretched over into having to do RevOps. You have to do a number of things, and it's difficult to be good at a lot of things, which is why I think the way you maybe would build a team 10 years ago versus now, I think you can look at, there's so many specializations. You don't just hire one agency of record for everything. You can get really specific and find specialists as a freelancer, or maybe a few core individuals that function internally, and then you can outsource the rest of that. But from a RevOps standpoint and really a data cleanliness and just an accuracy standpoint, it's a skill set that I think is difficult for maybe a generalist to have. You're either really good at maybe the creative side of marketing. You're maybe really good at the demand gen side. You may be fairly good at the RevOps side too, but there's some technical elements there of just being consistent with it and being confident that work's been done. And so that really needs to tie in across, like you said, with sales. What can we report back to sales to help them understand where to spend their time better, not just, spray and pray and maybe, spending time with the wrong types of prospects, but how can they make better decisions? And data helps tell a story with that. Same thing goes for customer service. How do we understand who our really good customers are? How do we understand when there might be there might be an opportunity for someone who's looking to churn, and how do we avoid that? So I think that skill set is just unique, and I think that it's critical now for any size company, but more so even the smaller companies that they have to be really really particular about who and how many people they bring internally. That's one of those roles that I think is very valuable.
Yeah. So Charlie, you mentioned you have a lot of experience doing sales and marketing at the same time, which is, most people think of RevOps, they're the person who bridges these two departments together, as you will. So if I'm guessing you're used to working in a smaller marketing team. So how does that play? And so I mean, if you're the strategy person, you're the one bringing like the strategy, or the generalist, or you're the one kind of evaluating the talent all the time. At what point do you bring in like the RevOps person? Is like the second hire, the third hire? Is it after like a creative or a storytelling type? Where exactly in the flow will you put them?
Yeah, if you asked me that question 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they would have been down the list.
Okay.
Because you're just used to, a writer, a designer, maybe a marketing developer, field marketing, demand gen, whatever that PR. And then on the sales side, I think where it falls in place nowadays is, I would say, again, earlier, the earlier the better. Now, you obviously need someone on the sales side to do the work.
Yes.
It'd be great to have someone, it'd be having a perfectly clean CRM, but if you don't have someone that can sell, what's the point there? So I think coming in as the hybrid between those departments, because someone who's going to be able to see things not only from a marketing side or a viewpoint, but a sales viewpoint as well. I think it's, you're asking a lot, but to find someone that is always looking at things from, how do we help nurture the right customers and work within their timelines, and give and arm the salesperson with enough information that they can make better decisions. At the same time, you want someone that can help arm the marketing team with decisions on, this email campaign was a success because I think it hit these 5 things. And here's the prospects that we've seen out of that. Hand that over to sales. And then it's repeatable. Sales, were those good prospects? Tell us why. And then we can hone in on that better. So again, I think you can work with small teams now. You could find a few people that may be more generalists, and then you outsource the specialists. Do you need a full-time SEO person internally? Possibly not, depending on the size of your company, but you can find some really quality outsourced, either freelancers or agencies that do that. But you need someone looking at data 24/7. You need someone being able to be proactive too, and come up with suggestions to say, hey, I kind of dug into these campaigns. Look what I found. Is this helpful to us? So that's one of those things that should be 24/7, always on, looking at that information, where that's why I think it's important to have that type of person in-house earlier than later.
Earlier than later. Yeah, and that makes total sense. So, now let's say, on your team, I mean, you've got, either you're doing the RevOps, or you have someone else helping you with RevOps. What keeps you guys up at night technically with running a RevOps or marketing organization like the one you're running at Send?
Yeah. So in our current state at Send, we're an InsurTech SaaS startup. We're a couple years in, but we have a small team. Sarah is our CMO. I report up to her. It's myself, her, and a product marketer now, and we oversee the BDR function. But then there's also a more true sales function. But it's a small team, only a handful of people. And so when you think about, we're all pitching in, and we're all trying to make decisions based on, how do we clean up the data? How do we avoid doing a lot of manual work? It's ironic because the product we sell helps insurance underwriters automate their systems and their processes. Yeah. So, it's kind of funny to think about what we've built for underwriting is sort of what you want to do for marketing. Is how do you just work faster and more efficiently with a small team? And so the things that keep us up at night are how much can we trust this information? How much can we trust that we're doing campaigns, we're doing outreach, inbound and outbound? How much can we trust that these are qualified leads? How much can we trust that we know that they're in the right stage of the deal cycle and that we can deliver the right assets to them? And so from a technical standpoint, I think, again, it's one of those left brain, right brain type elements where it's really hard to find someone that's really good at 10 different functions. I've always believed that you're good at 3 or 4 things, and you should find others that are really good at the rest of those. And so it's just tough when you have a small team, and I'm sure we're not the only ones that are doing something like this. You work in HubSpot. They've got great assets and great resources to help you build out the instance that you want. But there's a lot of technical know-how that has to go into that. And you can get really deep in terms of how, like, building out complex workflows and how that all weaves in, and how you can and make sure you're not breaking things when you're sending out different campaigns and such. It's a lot of work. And so I think that's the one thing that probably keeps us up at night, is how accurate is our data inside of HubSpot, and how do we just get better at knowing that we're talking to the right people.
Got it. Yeah. So it's basically the CR management, keeping it neat and tidy, just managing the house more than anything else is what keeps you up at night. Is there, now you mentioned HubSpot, is there particular areas of HubSpot that you feel like a marketing team is really good at, and then maybe ones that they're not as good at? I mean, what's your take on that, Charlie?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I've been very lucky and fortunate to be able to be very close to sales teams, some very large. I've had to work, in a previous role, I was in charge of sales ops, in addition to marketing. And so you're working with a team of 100 salespeople. They all have very different needs. I think the biggest thing I could share for any marketer really is spend time with sales. It's always been, the 2 separate sides of the aisle, but we're talking about revenue. We're not talking about marketing ops. We're not talking about sales ops. The hot topic we're talking about is revenue ops. And those 2 teams should work together towards a common goal. And so the more that marketing teams understand the problems that sales people are facing, they understand the timelines and how long it can take, especially for an enterprise level deal. I think the more that they can spend time with sales to listen to prospects, you're just going to make better decisions. You're going to make better decisions about when you're in Marketing Hub and you're working on email campaigns, or you're working within, you're putting social posts out through HubSpot. You're going to have a better idea of the terminology that prospects or customers are using, versus just sitting in marketing and making an assumption. And on the flip side, sales should be doing the same thing. I've seen really good salespeople, they give feedback, and it's not being critical. It's, hey, are you creating content around this topic? And I think when there's a constant loop there, that's where, when you're working inside a HubSpot, you're seeing deal progression move faster. You're seeing the right touch points hit. You're seeing open rates go up. You're seeing click-through rates go up. So it's just a constant loop, I think. And so when they're talking back and forth, and when there's a deep appreciation for, I know how hard your job is, and I know how hard your job is, and if we work together on this and just continue to communicate, you see that not only just in the output of what you're doing, but you see it in HubSpot. You see improvements in, like I said, open rates, but you see improvements in close won opportunities, things like that.
So it's interesting, you tied using the product with, like, actually, like, just making sure that the people are connected. So if the people are connected, the product will be easier to use. It doesn't matter if it's a HubSpot CRM or Salesforce or whatever. Now, how do you, in your experience, how have you made that connection between sales teams and marketing teams work? Are there, like, special events? Is there, like, a magic trick? Is there things you, like, turn bridge building activities that you do? How do you do it?
It's not easy. And I think
Right.
that it's definitely not easy. I think every company is probably going through some element of just maybe friction, sometimes animosity, sometimes just it's a lack of not being interested, I think, is the first step, is really. And sometimes someone just has to step up, and that might be from the marketing side and asking to be on, to be part of deal review meetings frequently. And as they're talking about deals and progression and needs there, I've sat in on those types of meetings and had LinkedIn pulled up, and I can help show. In the past, it was, hey, it looks like someone knows this prospect. We're struggling here. We're getting, we don't have an in with the right buyer there, but it looks like here's a warm intro. And all of a sudden they see how you're thinking, and then vice versa. By sitting in on those meetings, you're hearing the conversations happening. You're thinking like, oh, why are they asking that question? I can see how that could be impactful for my job, but I can see what they're going through. And so it usually starts with both sides of sales and marketing just having a genuine curiosity. I mean, sales should be curious inherently. They should be wanting to, they should be talking less than the prospect talks. So it's the same thing. Tell me why you're sending this email out at this time. Tell me why it looks like this. Tell me why, these landing pages are a certain way. Tell me why you're saying, or why the content looks like this. If they're asking those questions, then there's a deep appreciation there. But I've always kind of shared that, everyone's on the marketing team, everyone's on the sales team, and that goes for someone in accounting, that goes for someone in delivery, wherever, because they all have their own networks. They may be connected to somebody who could be an intro, but they all have a story to tell now. Everybody has, a LinkedIn profile. Everyone has their own persona. So I think the more that everyone understands how they can chip in on revenue, and you share those goals, or you share those celebrations. But marketing should be sitting in on customer calls. Sales should be contributing to, here's the content I'm hearing. And then marketing should celebrate that. Hey, that was great feedback. We just pushed this email campaign out and we got a 5% lift in response. That tells the salesperson I was listening to you. And so it's not easy. There's no magic wand like you said, but you got to start somewhere, and you have to show a genuine interest. And I think then the other side of the coin, the other side of the revenue coin, will see, okay, they actually care about what I'm trying to do, and we're all trying to get better at the same time.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of RevOps 500. This podcast is a great opportunity and channel for revenue operations and much more. If you've been thinking about a podcast, or you want to ship production to a friendly team, check out ringmaster.com. They're the team behind this podcast. RevOps 500 is sponsored by Computan. Computan serves as the back-end dev and technology team for shorthanded marketing agencies and departments. Shorthanded? Wait a minute, that sounds like me. Now, let's get back to it. The end.
Yeah, so you mentioned like the tell me why questions, which are pretty interesting, right? Tell me why this is happening, tell me why it's happening. And a lot of times in day-to-day work and anything, we just don't ask those questions enough, maybe, right? So maybe sounds like what you're saying is you need people to, on both sides of the aisle, to ask those questions to one another. And then when you have that, that's the start of the curiosity, and then the start of being heard, and then it goes into the CRM. It shows up in clean data, which is what RevOps is all about. So it's a pretty interesting circle that you drew there. So that's kind of like the past and the present. Charlie, where do you think the future of all this is going? Do you think that's going to change at all, or how will it change? I mean, what is your take?
I don't think that, so there's probably two ways to answer that. I don't think what's going to change is that the teams are going to meld more together in a sense of how they approach growing their business. And I think everyone wants to be seen and heard. And that's, not that I didn't make that up. A friend and a really smart salesperson, Amy Volas, I think that she might have trademarked that, but that goes back to that idea of asking more questions with an intent to actually do something about that. It's if you're sitting in a meeting and someone says, it's about the tone. Why'd you send that email out like that? Well, that's a negative tone. Yeah. But if there's a genuine curiosity, hey, I'm curious, why did we send that on a Thursday versus 8 p.m. on a Tuesday? And like, how does this work? How does this work? There's a genuine curiosity about that. And so I think that breaks down some barriers. So I think the future is going to continue to show these two types of teams are working closer together. And I think the future is also going to show that RevOps is going to have a seat at the table, because they're going to bring a very unique perspective around here's data that's telling a story, and here's how we can make decisions from that instead of guessing. Because I know, there's always been a joke around marketing is somewhat guessing. But there's science and art to what marketing does. Same thing on the sales side. RevOps helps to validate that, and it should proactively be giving insight into how to make your business better. So I think that as the future grows, we're going to see that role, see that function, see that type of skill set grow, and I think we're going to see that have more of a seat at the table from a decision making standpoint.
So yeah, I mean, it's just the RevOps is going to be of a more defined role, and then you're connecting people together more often, and you'll see people understand that that's what the role does. Sometimes it seems like people are not sure what a RevOps role does exactly, but you're saying that understanding is going to be much clearer than it is now. I mean, yeah. So like, let's kind of talk a little bit more about Charlie the person. What is so say you're trying to advise somebody who is maybe just stepping into a VP of sales and marketing type of role where they are going to have to wear both hats. It can't just be, I'm just marketing, I'm turning my head the other way on sales. What kind of advice could you give them? There's someone just coming into it.
The advice I'd give to somebody kind of stepping into maybe a hybrid role is probably similar to what I was talking about before, is you have to have genuine curiosity. My career path always started in marketing. It's been in some element of marketing leadership or, focused on different functions of marketing for 20 plus years. But there was, from the beginning, sales was a part of that. And usually that's because I've gravitated towards smaller organizations and you just have to do multiple things. And so I think I've just had a genuine curiosity around what do they do and how do they approach that? And I think it makes you think as a marketer, you're in sales. You've always been in sales. It's just you're selling in a different function. And like a light bulb went off at one point for me of just understanding that's a hard thing to do, to sell, especially when you're talking about software and you're talking about when you get to enterprise level. So the advice I'd give to somebody is just be genuinely curious and spend time talking to people that are really successful with that and multiple people. You have to, you're always learning. I think that's something that you have to advocate for, not only for yourself and hope that the company that you work for is going to advocate for you and they're going to put you in the right positions or around training and give you the assets you need, but you also have to advocate for yourself. And you can't just assume things are going to come to you. You have to spend time in the right communities. You have to read on your own. You have to listen. And so you have to take advantage of that. It's your career. You got to take advantage of that yourself. And so the more time you spend with people from different backgrounds around company size, function, maybe even industry, you're just going to pick up things, and it's just going to build your curiosity around what the other side of revenue does. But it's also going to just give you credibility when you can talk to that and say, hey, I understand what you're trying to do or what you're trying to go through. Have you thought about this? Or maybe this is a way to approach it we can work on together. It's just going to help bring credibility to, and it's going to help, again, back to the whole goal is to drive revenue.
So with that in mind, now, Charlie, would you say that most marketers or potential RevOps professionals who might be wearing multiple hats, I mean, would you say that, marketers and salespeople is listening maybe a strength of theirs, or is it more like the communicating, like talking, the idea people? I mean, and if it is that they're more idea people, how do they maybe let the game come to them a little bit and just lead with the ears first? How do you you've done that, obviously. You've been doing that for a long time. You can't be in a marketing and salesperson for multiple companies without knowing how to do that. So you know how to do that, right? So how do other people learn that curiosity if it doesn't come naturally to them?
It's tough if you're not an outgoing person. It's tough if you have to pick your balance, I think, there of where the right places to step in. One of the things that I've learned, I think that's very valuable, and this is, again, a a tactic that's valuable for sales and marketing to understand is everyone has a different learning style. And so there are visual learners, there are auditory learners. There are people that need a huge document before to digest, and then they'll come back with their questions, where some people can just rattle off a response right away. And so if you can appreciate that, you just know you have to understand how to communicate in different formats. And so I think one way to learn that way is, okay, either it's who you're reporting up to, who you're reporting across from, who you're working with, and what are their styles? Are they a visual learner? Do you record a Loom video for them as like a too long didn't read version for someone to see it visually? Sometimes if you're working with someone technical, they might want a lot of documentation. So understand that, give them the information in the format that they need, and then you're going to have a much better chance of just having a dialogue and being on the same page. But I've learned fairly quickly, because you make mistakes of thinking, well, I communicate this way. Why doesn't this person understand what I'm trying to share with them? You have to understand how they need it. And it's the same thing for prospecting. It shouldn't be about me. It's about what they need and the way that they need it. And so, you have to deviate that. If you're sending an email to a CEO who's super busy, probably bullet it out in two or three bullets max. If you're talking to someone on a dev team that you need, some back end work done, they might want a deeper, document. So it's all about the format, and it's all about their learning style. And I think the faster you can understand who you're trying to work with and their learning style, the better off that the quicker you're going to get to the end goal.
So what would some advice you give, like a previous version of yourself, knowing what you know now? Was there a time when maybe you didn't understand communication styles very well? I mean, everybody starts as a rookie, right? I mean, so what is some advice that you would probably give to your previous self?
Yeah, we're all learning, and I think I've made many, many, many mistakes in the past. I think what I've learned is, again, the learning style thing. And I worked with somebody who he wrote books about this, and it was just fascinating to me to think about, my style isn't the same style for everybody else. And it was, as soon as I picked up on that, it was, okay, the teams that I'm lucky enough to lead, how do you like to communicate? What works best? Some people need daily just check-ins to kind of keep things on pace. Some people need a little bit more room. Some people need, I've learned in the past, you make a mistake where they need constructive criticism, where somebody might need a little bit more detailed, nuance around how you deliver feedback on something. And so it's being aware and being self-aware enough that my style and my preference is not the same for everybody else. And that's going to get me nowhere. And I think, I have 3 little kids, same thing for them. My style is going to be different from them and how they interpret things. And so it's just, you have to adapt to the person that you're speaking with. And I've made mistakes doing that, but I think over time you're like, oh yeah, okay, I did it this way, and I shared it this way, and it worked, and it resonated better. So I think it's one of those things where you just always have to, you have to be aware of your situation and try to understand what the other person needs, and anticipate. If you can anticipate, and especially in a small company where you're moving fast and you don't have the luxury of massive resources, you have to anticipate and maybe be proactive, where, if you don't do that, and I have done this in the past, where you're like, maybe I should wait on that, like, bring a solution. And I think that's where, that's what people expect. So that would be my advice.
Got it. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you're lucky to have had a mentor like that, who helped you out, and who wrote books on learning style. I mean, that's an interesting thing. I mean, okay, so where can people learn more about you, Charlie? I mean, where can they connect with you online?
Yeah, I think probably the easiest place is LinkedIn. It's, I spend some time there. I kind of ebb and flow with sharing thoughts, but also it's just, it's a great place. It's a great place to learn, and it's a great place to pick up tips. And I mentioned Amy. There's a lot of people that I've focused my professional development on, more coming from sales leaders, because I know I still have a ton to learn on the sales side. I've done marketing for a lot longer, but I have a lot to learn there as well. But it's a great place to pick up some really good tips and tricks from people. So they can find me on LinkedIn, or on our website at Send, where it's an interesting opportunity within an industry I spent some time in before, in insurance. And so we're trying to do a lot of the things that we just talked about here, is build better data, align our sales and marketing campaigns together. So it's a fun opportunity within a SaaS product for insurance companies. And they could find me there or on LinkedIn, just searching Charlie Riley.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about Send while you're on the topic. Yeah,
it's a UK based company, but we're global. We work with insurance carriers all over the world, and our three founders. They've come from technology, and they were asked to build a solution for underwriters, which are really the salespeople in the insurance world. If you're not from insurance, there's a lot of a lot of terminology that's specific to that world, but they take risks, they look at it, assess it, and decide if it makes sense for them to consider that. And we've built software to make that process simpler. It's sort of like a CRM, I guess, is a good analogy for underwriters, to see all these risks in one place, to make better decisions faster about how they can help the company decide what business to write. And we use AI, we're using machine learning to be able to help automate those steps, to just make their job faster and let them spend time in the places that they wanted to do that, to build relationships with their prospects, just to not work on manual work all the time. So it's a great culture, great company, and it's been exciting as the first US hire to help us grow in North America.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a big opportunity. Obviously, it's something that you're used to doing, right? I mean, you're used to working in small marketing teams and kind of building out the pipeline and the demand gen machine and all those sorts of things. And that's kind of something that was really interesting. That's why we're really excited to get you on, because you have that experience working with many small different teams. Most of our guests don't have that combination of sales and marketing expertise. So this is an amazing conversation, just to kind of hear both sides. Because we usually get marketers on. The marketers will talk about they'll talk the marketing lingo, but not necessarily have a deep sensitivity for the sales side of it. And so we can't appreciate enough for you coming on and genuinely on this today.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun to build, and I think any advice I would give to a marketer is spend time with sales, because over my career I've learned that sales is extremely hard. And there's a perception, sales is, they do what they want, they make a ton of money, which both things could be fairly true to some degree, but it's also really difficult. And I think as a marketer, the more that you expand upon understanding financials, understanding the sales process, understanding how the ops teams work, you're just going to become a much more well-rounded marketer. So thanks for having me. It's been great to talk about, and it's a fun topic that I just enjoy this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's deeply insightful. And to anybody who's listening out there, I mean, if you enjoyed it, please send it over to somebody else. Maybe they can pick up some things from Charlie's journey. And thanks again, Charlie, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
This has been another exciting episode of RevOps 500, and we'll see you all next time. And that wraps up another episode of RevOps 500. Thanks for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at RevOps500.com. RevOps 500 is sponsored by CompuCare, providing technical and development expertise to growth-focused marketing teams.